Well, welcome to Steaming Heats. We're back. Yes. Love this show. I actually really love this show because so many podcasts are about life stories and sort of a general overview of stuff. But this one, I really wanted to just get into some nitty gritty war stories and some classic, just classic anecdotes from golden eras on the world tour. But more so, not even from the world tour, just from careers, because we seem to brush over them a fair bit. But man, oh man, what a guest to have in today. Woo! Frothing, even more froth that you're wearing a Manly Warringah Seagulls cap. What?
Hometown.
Yes.
The hometown.
Welcome, Rob Machado. I haven't seen you for ages, man.
Way too long.
Do you know what? I bumped you in Bali once.
Yeah.
But before that, I think last time we were hanging out was making Campaign 2 together.
Oh my goodness.
You reckon that's...
Really?
How old's that movie, man?
Gosh. Yeah, that's a long time ago.
That's got to be like 20 years or something.
Dude, that's wrong. That's not right at all.
Campaign 2 being older than, kids in school is heavy to me. Like, that's wild.
Oh,
How are you, man?
I'm fantastic.
Yeah,
my friend.
great.
I cannot be better. It's been good to be back in the homeland.
That's right. Born in Sydney.
I was born in Manly.
Manly, bro.
Come on.
Manly. Have you got the Manly footy chant down yet?
No. I see. I missed that
Manly. That's how you got to do it like that.
part. Okay. You got to go deep. I don't know if I have
real
that.
deep.
Yeah.
I'll take you to a game. We'll do it together one
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
Any memories from being a Grom?
The last time I was here, I drove to my old house. It was on Beacon Hill, up above Warringah
Classic.
Mall.
Yeah.
Right?
Right above the fortress, mate.
Yeah. My dad told me the address, and I pulled up, and I FaceTimed him, and he goes, "Yep, that's it." And I remember seeing photos and all these flashbacks of like ripping down the driveway on my little scooter and whatnot. And he goes, "Go knock on the door." And I was like, "You tripping? Like, who knocks on anyone's door?"
Yeah.
Right? And I go up there and I knock on the door, and I was like, I waited like 1 second, and I just started bolting. And the door opens, and the guy goes, "Hey, g'day, Rob." And I'm like, "What?" And he, and he turns out that his parents had bought the house from my parents.
No way.
And next thing you know, I'm taking a tour of the house. I'm meeting the parents. I got my dad on FaceTime. And he's going, "Yeah, I built that." And my dad was a contractor. I go down into this like little den, and they had found my dad's old skis.
No way.
And they had them displayed up because they were like antiques at this point, right? So that was pretty cool. And then he goes, "Yeah, go out the back." He's like, "I built some stairs and went up to this upper level in the backyard." He's like, "Go up to the top step." He's like, "There's some handprints in the concrete." Yeah, that was pretty
sick, man.
That was a tear.
So your little baby handprints in the concrete, still there in the house where you were born.
Yeah.
Oh,
isn't that crazy?
mate, I'm getting teary. That's real nice.
Yeah, we had a moment.
Well, I don't know if you remember this because the first time, maybe not the first time we met. I think we might have met through our friend Jesse Fain. God bless you. Hope you heal up well soon, my friend.
Yes.
Hectic accident. Stay on Jesse's Instagram if you're mates with him. He's giving updates on the reg. Looks like he's through the real fiery terror bits and the long journey begins. But we both love the guy. I'm pretty sure he introduced us. But one of the first nights that we ever had in the same space was obviously, I was a little momentum Grom, huge fan. And when I first got the job at Trax, one of my first jobs was 1994, and I had to go to the ASP banquet, which was at the Manly Park Pacific.
Wow.
It was upstairs in Manly at this crazy hotel. Lisa Anderson and Kelly Slater were the world champs, so they were getting their thing. You were in full afro mode.
Yeah.
Had the big fro.
Yeah.
And that night I dropped a cigarette butt on Lisa Anderson's leg before she got up to get the trophy and burned a big ladder in her stockings, which fucking hell, man. I'm still losing sleep over it. I can't believe it. You could smoke inside, and I didn't even smoke then, so I don't even know what I was thinking. But the convo we had this night, this is how much of a little fan I was. I came up to you and I was like, "Oh man, do you reckon I could do a story with you for Trax?" And you're like, "Yeah, man." I said, "I just want to really ask you one question." And you were like, "What's that?" And I said, You know, when you do that backwards basketball shot in, was that Focus or Momentum 2? I think Focus maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many goes did you have to do that? And you were like, one, man.
First try. But you know what? To be honest, the first try wasn't clean. I think I got a couple bounces off the rim, and Taylor was kind of like, yeah, I went in, but so that was always my answer. But it was really like, I think the third or the fourth try that I got the action just clean.
It's the swoosh.
Yeah, you need that.
Nice, man. Well, look, you're in Australia promoting the what's the movie called? It's the Birth of the Endless Summer. So that's cool. I mean, that's going to probably be finished by the time this comes out, which will be in a few days or whatever. But been a good trip.
It's been an epic trip. Started on the Sunshine Coast, and I've been hanging out just with the Firewire guys, kind of touring around retailers and visiting and hanging out, talking stories, surfboards, and trying to find a couple waves here and there. And, I've been shaping a few boards while I was here.
Sweet.
And doing some movies and Q&As. I had a great Q&A with Tommy Carroll in Sydney.
How good.
Same thing. Like we haven't seen each other in decades, it feels like. And it was just so good to just sit up on stage and tell stories.
Yeah.
You know, like
TVC, man. You just feel like you're sitting with Buddha when you sit with him at the moment.
So good.
Just radiating in his like holy presence because he's just such a classic dude. But he keeps the froth in check these days, but you can still feel it simmering.
Yeah. I stirred it up a little bit. I brought up some old stories from G-Land, and we had a good laugh. It was fun, man.
Oh man, well, and Rasta too.
And then it wasn't last night, it was the night before. Yeah, we had a good hang with Rasta, and we had a good surf that day. And yeah, it's just been good, man. Just reconnecting with, I don't know, man. Like it's weird when you haven't been somewhere in this long, and it just feels so good to come back and reconnect just with the country itself, and all your friends that you have here, and everyone seems to like COVID kind of made us all hunker down into our own little bubbles, and now it's like, oh yeah, I forgot, like this is what we used to do. We used to travel around, and we'd see each other in all these different places, and have surfs together, and like, right? It was just that was our lifestyle. So when it kind of disappeared for a while, you miss it. Yeah. And so it's good to kind of refresh that feeling.
Oh, well, man, hopefully we can dredge up a few old feelings of stoke and frustration and anger and whatever, because, like I guess people nowadays, especially like the younger generation, they might know you sort of more in your later incarnation as a surfer, where I guess, for a lot of us, it's like Jerry Lopez for our generation, like people think of you as a style master, as just a really pure surfer who has been on your own program forever. But in your younger years, to get to this place, you did the classic pathway from, talented Grom through the juniors and the NSSAs. I think that's the junior series at home where you guys are, and battled it out all the way to the world tour, man. 9 years on tour, 9 seasons, 12 CT victories, that's a lot, man. Like, you have a look at some of the crew who have been on tour for a long time. In comparison, I guess, like if you look at, I don't know, John and crew like that, you know, what's John on 17 maybe, or not even? It's like, it's a lot of wins, man, and it shows just how competitive you were and maybe still are.
Secretly.
But
if you had a ping pong table here, you'd see that side.
That's it, man. That's it. But, as a grommet, watching you come up was just one of the funnest things ever, especially, for kids in Australia who grew up. Really, my first heroes were Occy and Tom Carroll.
Me too.
Well, a lot of power-based surfing, but there was just something so exciting about what you guys were doing when you first started to flare with the Momentum generation. But this is all about just going through some of that period of your life, man. Yeah. Like, it's called Steaming Heats. Steaming Heat. And I want to just take you right back to the very start. Like, do you remember the very first comp you ever went in? Like, how it came about? Did you want to go in it yourself, or did someone just drag you down the beach and chuck a rashie on you?
Yeah, we had a series called the YMCA back home, Surf Series, which I had heard about. I'd caught wind of it, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, they have a 12 and under division, and you should go surf in it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I remember going up to Oceanside, and I think there was 3 kids in it, which at the time, like, that's how few surfers there were under 12. It was like 3 or 4 kids were in it, and I'm like, "Oh wow, this is cool. I'm walking home with a trophy, guaranteed."
Yeah.
And I went out, and I ended up losing. I got second to my friend Justin Cote, who I still surf with to this day. Yeah,
older brother of Chris. To anyone who
exactly
is familiar with the Cote brothers.
The Cote brothers, legendary. So we he still reminds me that whenever we surf,
Oh, you'll take a win wherever you can get it, for sure.
So that was the beginning, and I don't remember like the waves or anything. I just remember getting second and getting a trophy and thinking like, "Oh man, if I just enter in all these events, I'm going to come home with a trophy every time." And I was like, had my dad build shelves in my room, and it was just I think within the next year or 2, I was in a comp every weekend. It was like there was NSSA Open Season, there was NSSA Explorer, there was the YMCA, there was the CSA. I think those were the 4 that I did, and it was kind of hectic.
Yeah.
I had a full burnout phase.
Oh, really?
By the time I was like 15. Like where I didn't even know what it was like to go surfing with my friends anymore. Like every weekend was like, "Oh, we're going to Huntington. Oh, we're going to Ventura. Oh, we're going here. We're going there." It was kind of hectic, and I'd come home and I'd go back to school on Monday, and my friends would be like, "Oh, man, we surfed suckouts all weekend. It was so sick." And it was like we were just talking about, like those sessions that you miss with your friend group, that they're like, "Oh, we had this peak, and it was just us, and we're trading waves and high-fiving."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, man."
That makes total sense. Like if you, like for example, if I went down the coast, I don't know, for regional or a board riders or a school thing, but my friends were at home and the surf was good, I felt like they were getting better faster than me. So I'd be Devo, even though I was surfing in contests. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's just that constant, like at home, that competitiveness seems so much more healthy because it's based in friendship and just challenging your buddies. But so in those early days, like when did you first sort of start encountering some of the names that would be a part of your journey?
Okay, so I'll go back. This is kind of a classic story. In 1986, the U.S. Championships took place at Sebastian Inlet in Florida, which we know who came from that little part of the world, Mr. Slater. And I was an alternate in the event. I wasn't even guaranteed a spot. And my dad just said, "Hey, screw it. Let's just fly over there. I bet if we show up, they'll put you in the comp." So we go over there, fly to Florida, rent a car, a motel, the whole deal, and show up at the comp, and they go, "Sweet, you're in." I go through the comp, and I win.
No way.
I win the U.S. Championships.
And you're Kelly's age? Are you guys in the same division and stuff?
No, so I was 12 and under, and Kelly was 13 to 14.
Right.
So I was Menahunis, he was boys.
Gotcha.
But what they did at the end of the event, they had a super heat, and they took the winners from every division. So it was myself, Kelly, Todd Holland, Bill Johnson, Sterling. I'm not Sterling Spencer. Why am I blanking on his name? Sterling's dad.
Yancey?
Yancey.
Yeah.
Yancey Spencer was in the heat because he had won like the Grandmasters, and there was a couple other dudes in there. But you kind of look at that. That was a stacked heat. I was like, oh my gosh. But that was like the first time I ever surfed against Kelly, and it was at Sebastian. And
wow.
And so I think I ended up getting 4th in the heat. Kelly won. And it was just kind of like this moment in time where here I am in Florida, wasn't even supposed to be in the comp. I win it. Now I'm surfing in a heat against Kelly, who's already touted to be Kelly.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was kind of a crazy moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
As you guys move through the NSSA, it's like, I remember buying Surfing and Surfer magazine. I knew that was a big deal, even though I had no idea what it was, just because of just the osmosis of seeing it constantly. And then you'd get onto the sort of this regional tour, and I guess it's where crew decided whether they wanted to go pro or not, like that Bud tour. I don't know if that was around when you were doing it. Any kind of memories from that particular period where, I don't know, where you started to feel, I don't know, where you knew where you sat with what you wanted to do with your life? Like, was it always just eyes on the prize of being a pro surfer and nothing else?
Yeah.
Or did you have to kind of, so I imagine lots of people have that idea in their heads until they start reaching the seniors of the NSSA and then the bud, and then things can delaminate because of the way of life in California, for one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like being a pro surfer was never even a thought. Like, honestly, like you kind of didn't, it wasn't this glorious pathway that was there and it was laid out in front of you. I was kind of like, screw it. Like, I'm surfing in the NSSAs. I won the US championships and I got sponsored by Quicksilver, and it was like, okay, cool. So fast forward like 2 years, I just turned 14 and one of my sponsors entered me into the Bud Tour event at Seaside Reef, which now is my favorite spot. Like, that's where I surf every day.
Yeah.
I'd never surfed there.
Oh.
I lived up the road. I lived a mile up the road.
Yeah.
And I surfed Swamis every day. And like, to go to Seaside was like a surf trip.
Yeah.
And I'm 14. Like, so he enters me in this contest, and it was kind of, I was nervous, man. It's a reef. It breaks way out the back. What's going on out there? And I got lucky. It was in the middle of winter, but it was waist to shoulder high, and I was 4'6" and weighed 80 pounds. And I do remember one heat though. I just started making it through heats. I ended up surfing 9 heats, and I made it to the final, and I got 4th in the final. I lost to Mike Lambrisi, Richie Collins, and Todd Martin.
Far out. Yeah. That's a classic heat. Lambrisi, he was a pro bodyboarder as well at one stage.
Yeah. But I remember one heat in particular where I was such a little kid, right? And I was sitting out the back, and Alan Sarlo was in my heat. And he was like a proper dude, like man. He had like a beard and just like, he's a gorilla.
Yeah.
And he intimidated the shit out of me. He just paddled by me, grunting and growling.
Oh, that's so good.
And he would just catch any wave he wanted, and I'd paddle away like, oh, sorry, I'll be over here. And it was just so comical. I ended up making it through the heat. I would just wait for my turn and paddle over and get a scrap. And I was just this little light, little human just whipping around. And, it was crazy event. But that was when I was 14. Back then we couldn't accept prize money because you're an amateur. It went into some fund, and I made $700.
Yeah. Wow, that's money.
And the most devastating part for me, there's footage of me standing on stage, right? And I get they announce it, 4th place. The guy comes out and gives me like a medal, like puts it over my head. Yeah. And then as I turn, they come and bring out all the trophies that were like this tall. And I was just, you see my eyes turn and look like, I got a fucking medal.
Yeah.
That's all I get.
Yeah.
Like, that part was more devastating to me than anything else.
Classic.
That's what I remember. But the Bud Tour was like, it was an amazing thing that we had where you could, as a young kid, go and compete against guys that were on the World Tour. You guys had guys like Derek Ho and Marty Thomas and these guys that would, why wouldn't they surf those contests? In between the CT events, they would come and surf these little events in California and make a few bucks. And we got to surf against them, And there were some funny moments, man. We traveled around. Like, my senior year, the first event I ever won, I was still in high school, and it was at Sebastian Inlet again. And I think in the final was Danny Machado. I can't even remember the other guys, but I just had this epic little board that just linked together all, and I ended up winning the contest. And it's funny because when I never really had any good results since that final I made when I was 14. Now I'm 16 or 17. I booked my ticket to fly home on Saturday, which the contest goes till Sunday.
Yeah. You're just
and I'm like, guaranteed I'm going to lose.
It's a cheaper ticket. Yeah, I'll get out of here.
So I had already had my ticket booked, and I ended up making the final and winning, and I had to change my ticket, which who cares at that point, you know? But I came home with like $6,000, you know, still in high school, and that was just wow, man.
That's insane.
Crazy.
And like, where was Kelly at in his journey by this stage? Is he sort of popping off, getting that win at Lowers yet, or is this still a year or two before that, or is this sort of around the same time?
That's around the same time.
Yeah.
I think that was around, I graduated from high school in 91, so it would have been like 90, and that was around that time when Lowers, which I have a good Lowers story too. I had a heat with Derek Ho, and
Same comp?
it was the Lowers comp.
Yeah, the one that Kelly
Maybe.
Slater in
It
black
might
and
have
white
been.
and pumping Lowers.
It was pumping,
Yeah.
and I was so nervous. I like didn't sleep the night before,
Yeah.
and I had Derek Ho in my heat, and I don't know how we got to this point, but this peak came in, and I was going to go left, right? So I was trying to get behind him, and as I paddled behind him, he paddled into the wave, and his leash, like I had paddled through his leash. Oh my goodness. Like all of a sudden I just felt this pull, like, you know, when somebody catches a wave and you're holding their leash,
I know
and there's this giant yank, and
You
I just
Burkharted him.
I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And the look that I got when he came back over the back of the wave and just was like, oh, freaking Howley, you're so dead.
Oh,
And that was it. I was done. Like the rest of the heat, I could barely surf. I was like, I just ruined my life. I was so shattered.
fully, man. Like,
I just Burkharted Derek Ho at Lowers. Like,
oh my God, that is so heavy.
I freaking could not
Yeah.
even ride a wave the rest of the heat. I lost. I was just like, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I'm like, that's it. I can't go to Hawaii anymore. Like, and then somehow we sorted it out. We became amazing friends.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
he's legend.
R.I.P. the great DH.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to start bouncing around from here.
Yeah.
But I want to, I do want to ask you about your first ever CT heat, because
I know.
you qualified in 93. So Slater's already been a world champ.
Yeah.
He's lost that world title to Derek Ho,
Yeah.
Uncle D. And then you qualify for that year. So you must have been chomping at the bit, seeing Kelly get a couple of years under his belts, knowing that you guys were, you know, A, friends, B, sparring partners.
Yeah.
You must have just been chomping, man. Have you got any idea? Was it Snapper?
No, I feel like it wasn't.
No, it must have been before that era.
It might have been Manly.
That sounds about right.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I
Didn't
think
they have
so.
some events
Coke
there?
Classic was
Coke
first of the year, I think.
or Narrabeen?
Narrabeen.
Might have been Narrabeen.
Yeah.
We actually even had one where we went up north. Like they had to go mobile one year. But I seriously, like, I have such a bad recollection of that first year, because the first half of the year, all I know is that the first half of the year was a complete shocker.
Yeah.
Like I didn't win it. I didn't win any heats, and I was pretty much in, I don't know, I was definitely back of the pack, and because I Bells was always hard for me. Like it's just challenging, and then going into the back, Japan was kind of in the back half of the year. And I went to Japan. There was two events. There was one in Miyazaki and one in Chiba.
That's right.
And I ended up getting a third in Miyazaki, and then I won the event in
in your rookie year.
Yeah.
Won an event and came third in the other back-to-back.
Back-to-back. So
Whoa.
I shot up the ratings.
Yeah.
And I don't know what events were after that, but going into pipe, I had a mathematical chance of winning the world title.
Oh, first year on tour.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, so describe to me then, because you guys were not welcome with open arms as like, hey, the boys have made it. Yeah, you've qualified. Let's go. Like it was more like, you pussies, like learn how to do a turn with power. Like you're all, you know, you got written off for a lot of things that people didn't know that. They just didn't know that you were A, skillful, and B, mad. Like you all charged. So, you know, how was that first year? Like what are your recollections of, you know, your alpha males, like your Kongs, your Pottses, your Bainies, like everyone who had been established and just really didn't like the idea of California having a big push coming through.
Totally, man. There's a good, I mean, definitely not welcomed. You know, there was no open arms, like here's how you do this, do that. It's just like bad stares and growls and grunts and just like, you guys are kooks. Like, you're just a little blip on the radar. Like, we're power surfing and we're this. And we're just like, all right, we're just going to do our thing and try to make a mark on surfing here. But I remember going to Japan. This was a classic one because Kong, like Elko. Yeah. Like, dude, he was intense.
Well, he would have been freaking in 93 because he just lost that world title to Derek Ho at Pipe in the last heat of the year.
Right.
So I imagine he was hitting 93 with like lots of love in his heart, and
there wasn't a lot of love. No, I clearly remember every single time he surfed a heat, whether he comboed the guy with like 3/8 or if he got smoked. He'd come straight in, rip his jersey off, and go straight up the judge's tower and yell at him. Win or lose. I was so baffled. I was like, what is happening? Like, how? I don't get it. Like, how do you come in from just like smoking someone and then go yell at him? He'd be like, you guys are blowing it that one way, this, that. Like, he was the one. At one point, the judges all had, what do you call it? They had like walls up between them, and they had to wear headphones.
Petitions, headphones, sealed off from each other.
And they couldn't hear the scores because he was convinced that if they knew what the guy needed, then it was going to affect the way that they scored the wave.
Mate, I swear, there'd be a lot of fans of pro surfing who say that's how it should be anyway.
I know. So he was onto something.
Yeah.
Totally get it. So fast forward to Japan, Chiba, my friend goes, I got you this cool place to stay, this little, Obachan, grandma's little house, and you get your own little room. So I walk in and all's good. I get set up and he goes, dinner's at 6:00, and she has it in this little living room. And I remember sliding open the little rice paper door and Elko.
Oh, his eyes must have fallen out of his head.
He's just like, we're the only two staying there. It's like, we're gonna sit at a dinner table. And it was like, just to give people at home the context, like Gary Elkinen, 4-time runner-up to the world title, sort of hitting the twilight of his career by this stage, and has been seriously, whether you agree or not, in his mind, he's been seriously roasted for a couple of those world titles. And you guys and him, it was real. Like, it was played out in the press. It was played out in the contest zones. Yeah.
So for you to open that sliding paper door and see him, proper moment, eh?
Dude, like, when you think back of the competitors' areas, like, we would all be on one side, they'd all be on the other, like, there was zero communication happening. So now it's like, slide open the door. And you know what was the biggest blessing was that my dad was with me. And my dad doesn't give a shit.
No.
And he just walks in and goes, hey, what's up? I'm Jim, and he's like, hey, I'm Elko. And I just literally sat back and they started talking about motorcycles and this and that and Europe and like, all these things. And it's almost like because of their relationship, I kind of got let in. And sweet. All of a sudden now I'd see him and he'd be like, hey, g'day, Rob, and like still to this day, every time I see him, he asks me about my dad, and like, and it, like that, these little moments of breaking through, right? And like me riding for Gotcha and like showing up to photo shoots with Derek Ho, with Martin Potter and being like, oh my gosh, I have to spend the entire day shooting photos with these guys and like having to, mingle and hang out. It was like, well, here we go. Like, I'm just going to be me. And those things at the end of the day, like, really helped.
Well, those things, like, I mean, those guys in particular came from an era so fueled by ego. Like, it was all, and I guess because they were on the sharp end of the wedge in terms of the industry starting to really fire up and get money. But where they came from, they were still like going, if he's getting paid, that's money. I should be getting paid. And like everything was like that, even in their clique.
Yeah.
So, it is funny though, man, like as you get older and you see where they're all at, Oki, sober for like 5 to 8 years now.
Yeah.
Tom Carroll, the meditation Swami, like.
Amazing.
Derek, rest in peace, but still surfing Pipeline right up till his dying days. Like you just go, oh, man, these guys, they're just such surf lords. They just live for it. I just saw Kong in Ulus.
Yes.
He's got an ankle injury, so he's not surfing, but he's just in Indo going, man, I just want to be here. I want to be in the surf. I want to be around it.
Cool.
So it is cool. It is cool that,
I had a good
they've had
heat.
that epiphany kind of about their lives and moved on. Potts is last I heard, like some sort of tugboat or fisherman.
Really?
He's like driving boats down off the Mornington Peninsula.
Wow.
Have to double check that. But
speaking of
ocean
Potts,
going lives, man. Big time.
Yeah. Speaking of Potts, this is a good one because Potts was fiery.
Yeah.
He was really like, I'm not giving you an inch. And we had a heat in Hossegor. I don't remember if it might have been that year, 94, 95. I think it was 94. It was, waist high, perfect little bank, rights and lefts. And we were just going back and forth, right? And I needed a score, and I got this left, and I got, got to the beach. It was those ones where you just ride it right up onto the sand. And I grab my board, I turn around, and he's on the right. He's on the next right. Boom, he rips it all the way in, and then it's a paddle battle. Like, we're both coming from opposite sides, and there's like a minute left in the heat. They say my last score, and I took the lead, and he needs another wave, and I'm like, if I get priority right now, it's over, right? And so we race back out. We're just going hard, staring at each other, and we get to where we think the lineup is, at this point, who knows? You stop and sit up, right? You do the old sit up, and they're not doing anything. The disc isn't changing, and there's a wave coming. It's like, and he just was like, I'm going. I was like too scared. I was like, I don't know if I have priority. The disc didn't change. It was still sideways, and this wave came, and it was like too quick to make decisions. Yeah. And he went and he ripped this wave, and I was like, oh man, I just lost. That's such a bummer. And he got to the beach, and they said the score, and he didn't get the score. Oh gosh. It was like, I was so like, and it was, like I said, the first half of that year had been so like just a lot of losses and hard, brutal losses, and to have one of those go your way, like in a situation like that, was just felt like you won the world title. Yeah. And I was just so fired up, and just like coming in, and like all my boys are there, Kelly, and it's just like, sick. Oh man, it was pretty intense. But it feels like,
any win that any of you guys got over those old dogs would have felt like a win for the team, and kind of like a changing of the guard moment, because it was coming on quick.
It was coming quick.
It was already happening culturally, because the momentum generation, I guess one of the reasons why they didn't really respect or wanted to give you guys respect was because you were already so popular because of the videos.
Right.
You were already influencing kids in Australia. And I remember Tracks magazine, like all the old guys writing in letters like, these fucking seppos surfing like fucking pussies and all this sort of stuff. And I'd be like, yeah, but like I was working at Tracks. Right. And I'd be like, they're not surfing like pussies, bro. They're fucking busting tail and doing airs. Like that's how I want to surf.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a trippy time. And I guess by the time he hit the tour, and Slater's already got a world title under his belt, before Kong and a few of the long campaigners even knew what was going on, must have been terrifying for him.
Yeah.
Let's get into a couple of just real like questions or heats that spring straight to mind. So let's say the heat you wish you could surf over and over and over again. Like, is there a heat from your career where you go, oh man, I could relive that time and time again? And whether it was the waves or the feeling of getting over someone, or just, I mean, two spring to mind for you. Like for me, it would be the two Slater pipeline heats that you had, the high five and the 98 one, which doesn't get talked about as much, but which is fucking one of the best heats I've ever seen. Yeah. I was on the beach for that. And then the, 2000 pipe final.
Yeah.
Pretty special. So
yeah, all those pipe heats that you just mentioned, for sure. And another one sticks out in my head, and Kelly just actually posted a clip, was I surfed against Louis Egan at G-Land. And that was 98, I believe, when it was pumping speedies.
97.
97,
Yeah.
thanks. I knew it was around there somewhere. But, I had a 10. He had a 10. It was just, and he ended up winning the event. Ours was a quarterfinal heat, but it was just one of those heats where you come in with the biggest grin on your face. And you're like, I don't care the outcome. Like, that just felt so good.
That is the most pumping speedies. Like that comp, I don't know. Has it ever been that good
No.
for anything? It's like
when I ended up getting a cover shot from that heat in Surfing Magazine. It was a sequence of me just like rolling in on the ledge and standing in this absolutely picturesque, beautiful wave. And that's how good the waves were. Like, how often did you see a contest jersey shot?
Rarely back then.
On a cover of a magazine.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. But talking about those pipe heats, like me and Tom Carroll had a good chat about 95. If you look back at the history in 94, like I just mentioned, I came into 94 with a mathematical chance in winning the world title. So I was looped in on all this media, like, you have a chance.
Yeah.
Everyone has to lose in the first round and you have to win the contest, but you have a chance.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, great. Like, this is exactly what I need. Like, I need attention on me.
Yeah.
And because I was scared. I was straight up, like, I hadn't really gotten any good waves at pipe. I was, it was a strange time for me. Like, I was coming to Hawaii. I just felt a lot of pressure. And sure enough, the first day we pull up and it's second reef, as scary as it gets, where you can't surf second reef, but you have to dodge the sets and hopefully not get washed back to the beach and have to loop around. Like, it was just, and I was in like the 5th or 6th heat and I watched a fellow competitor paddle out in the first heat and not catch a wave. And I was like, I cannot do that. Like, I will not do that. And I don't know if that was the fire that triggered it, but I went out in my heat. I had Tony Ray in my heat. I think these were, and he's
gnarly.
Not scared.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the other guy was Fabio Gouveia, who charges as well and is just very calculated. And we got out there and I was just, my heart was pounding out of my chest. And we were in that just outside of First Reef and I was just dodging. And then this wave came in and those guys didn't even look at it. And I just thought, this is it. It had missed the second reef, but it was standing up enough where I could have chipped in and I got this little bit of a roll in and I just remember rolling over and just tippy-toeing down the face. And as I got to the bottom, I understood really quick why those guys didn't go on the wave. And it was because there was just the whitewater line from the wave before and all the reverberation and the ripple and the foam and 140-pound little skinny Californian. I hit that thing and I just laid out flat, like at the bottom of the wave, worst place you could fall.
Yeah.
And it felt like 10 minutes that I was just laying at the bottom of the wave, like waiting for it to come and kill me. Here it comes. Here. Wait, I'm going to look up and watch the lip just land on me.
Yeah.
And I got annihilated. But it was the best thing that could have happened because I got washed to the beach. There was probably 2 more after that. And, to the point where the jet ski drives in and like checks on you.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you all right?
Yeah.
Like, that was bad.
Yeah.
And Terry Ahui, like, bro, you okay? And I went out and I ended up catching a couple waves and in that heat, and it like had taken away the jitters and the butterflies and everything. So to put it all in perspective, that's 94.
Yeah.
And I didn't do well in that event. I made it through one heat and then I lost. But coming into 95, if we look back, Sonny was in the lead. I was in second. Kelly was in third. Any sort of media that was done, anytime Sonny had the mic, he just wrote me off. He's like, yeah, I'm worried about Kelly. Kelly can serve pipe, but Rob, no chance.
Yeah.
And so leading up to that event, I was just like, yeah, well, I'm starting to believe him, yeah, maybe I don't. But something happened during that event that really just like things clicked. and it all started to make sense. You know, I'd put a lot of time in there. Like I remember after the pipe contest in 94, I just stayed in Hawaii for months and surfed pipe every day and just went out there and watched Derek and watched all the guys and just where are they sitting and what, like analyzed the shit out of it. And so when 95 came around, it kind of started to make sense. And the waves were pumping in 95. Like there was a couple second reef days and there was proper swell and there was a lot of lefts, which was great.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is cool. And next thing you know, I figured it out. Like I was backdooring these sections and getting blown out of tubes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And heat after heat after heat. And, I just, next thing you know, and Sonny ended up losing to Aki in that really strange heat. And it was like, now you're in the hunt for the world title. And all of a sudden, me and Kelly have our heat, semifinal heat. And, whew, man.
Man, the overwhelming memory for me of that, other than the moment you're going to talk about, is the perfection. Like the surf was cooking. It was just this most crystalline, coned out, blue offshore, like perfect pipe day you've ever seen, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like you kind of paddling out going, world title, but that surfer in you is going, fuck, I'm going to get so pitted.
So excited. And that's how it kind of was the whole event. And like what I was just saying, like I had figured it out.
Yeah.
I had this like major breakthrough moment where I was like, I figured out how to surf pipe. Like this is like incredible. So going out in that heat, it's funny because Tom was telling the story and he was in Kelly's camp and he said Kelly was so stressed out that he like got him in this yoga pose and was like stretching him out to calm him down like before this heat, you know? And I'm like, oh, thanks, Tom. It's your fault. You know, like, no. But in the end, you know, we paddled out and I think I remember at one point, like turning to Kelly being like, dude, like, can you believe that this is what's happening? Like we're about to surf like 8 to 10 foot perfect pipe. And it's like, it's beautiful, palm trees on the beach, sunny. Like I'm just like blown away by all the elements that we're like being dealt. And the heat turned out to be just over the top. Like we both had 10-point rides. How often do you see heats when two guys have 10-point rides?
No, not very often.
Right. It was top 3. And I think I had a low 9. And then I had a high 8 were my 3 scores. And Kelly had like a 10 and a 9.5 and like a 9.33. Like he was just on a bender. Yeah. Like frothing. And the levels of froth were so high. Like it was, and I remember that set. He had priority. He took off. And from the video, he got so shocked and came out and did one of his big round wrapping. That's right. And I think he did like almost like try to do a carving 360 off the Rio. And then you see me drop in and it was like the best wave I've ever caught at pipe. And it wasn't the fact that I had gotten really deep, but it was like this little chip shot in and I just stood straight up and I was just so relaxed. And it was like guaranteed you're going to make it. And it probably wasn't even one of my top 3 scores, but it was just this moment where it was just this like crystal tunnel of magical, I don't know, like there's so many ways you could describe it, but I was just standing there just mesmerized and I came through that and to see your friend like with his arms up, just like, of course, I'm going to high five my friend. Like everything was out the window at this point. Like I'd already won, you know, like the world title wasn't even a thought in my mind at that point. You know, and I love to hear all these different angles and theories. You should have run him over, and you should have kicked out and got priority, and you would have got the next wave.
Everyone speculates about it. Still, everyone. And like, you know, it's funny that you said you were out there sort of looking at Kelly going, oh, how good is this? Just fully having this moment. And we had him on a live show in front of people. And I think Oki or someone said, I thought that you did that on purpose. And he goes, no, that shits me, man. That shits me. It was really pissed off. Yeah. He said pissed off. He actually said those words. He's like, that was a moment for me. That was like one of the best moments of my life. And now it's been sort of diminished into this thing where I'm just such a fuckwit and such an aggro competitor that I can't have those moments. Like, And I was just sort of thinking about when you were saying that, could you see in his eyes that he was feeling the same way, or was did he have that kind of Tommy Carroll?
No, I could see
knots
it.
in his body and all that, you know?
No, I could see it.
I mean, you guys have known each other. That's the other thing. You're not
Yeah.
just surfing against someone who you surf against in heats. Someone you've known since you were 13.
Yeah, I'd stay at his house, he'd stay at my house. Like, we started traveling around the world. Like, yeah, we've been friends for years and years. And all of a sudden, like, to go from surfing that super heat at Sebastian Inlet in 1986 to like
competing for a world title
at perfect 8 to 10 foot pipe, where you're like, these are like, you know, I had photos of, you know, I mean, all the stuff that we've seen over the course of our lives of pipeline and how like it's put up on such a pedestal and was such a incredible place to go out and perform at somewhere like that and be at the highest level. It was like, what is happening?
And like, you gifted that lineup to yourself.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
And so by the time the high five thing had happened, like Sean Thompson, I think in some interview said that like, if Rob would have kicked out, he would have got priority and got the next wave he would have won the world title. I'm like, dude, you're tripping. Like, that is not how I remember it.
No.
Like, we had already had our 3 waves each.
Yeah.
I think I was comboed at that point because we had such high scores. And that was like, dude, I'm just letting go. Like, this is just a glorious moment where like, I'm going to high five my friend and he's just as excited as I am. Like, yeah, he's still got to win another heat to win the world title. He's got to beat Aki.
Yeah.
That's no small task at all. And I think it was just a moment. And I agree with Kelly. Like, I feel bad for him because, he gets kind of thrown under the bus in that situation. Whereas for me, it became this moment where a lot of people, I think anyone who surfs, I mean, let's just look at the overall population of surfers. Like, how many people want to put on a jersey and surf in a comp?
Yeah.
Not that many.
No.
Like, it's a really small percentage. But they'll all watch a comp. And so, like, how many times when they're watching...
And they'll all get sour or, like, suck on a big wheelbarrow full of lemons if things don't go the way that they want. They're just the most bitter people alive if you fucking get a judging call go the way they don't want to see it. Or, you know what I mean? So people are so... It's incredible to me, you know, having worked in surf media for so long. Like, when I was a Grom and the mags were the only information you could ever get on surfing.
Yeah.
Like, you just couldn't wait for them to come out. You generally loved every single thing in them.
Yeah.
And then, now it's like rip and tear and shred and look for the sort of the negative in everything, which must be tough when you're someone like Kelly.
Yeah.
And you feel the need to respond to every single comment. Poor bucker.
Gosh.
Must roll around in bed at night. Karate.
But that moment, going back to that moment, like, I think that was a moment in time in competitive surfing where, like, every guy, every person that, like, caught wind of it or saw it in person, like, said, that was the coolest thing I've seen in competitive surfing. Like, that's 2 friends. That's what 2 friends would do if they were surfing their beachy, you know, and having this epic session. Like,
that's it.
If you get blown out of a tube and you see your buddy, you're high-fiving him.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you do. And that is how I was portrayed. Like, I connected with that every person on the beach or, like I said, you know.
Yeah, man. Look, I think the initial reaction was that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I think to just the fierce sort of analysts and competitive, like, strategists, it was like a big error.
Yeah.
But as you say, you know, you got to look at the actual heat in the context of what had happened and how much time was left and what needed to go on.
Yeah.
And it kind of doesn't add up for those people. So
someone needs to get that entire heat and just have it, like, break
Play
it
out,
down.
start,
Here's
finish.
first wave, second wave, third wave, and see where that
would
actually
be
took
cool.
place.
That'd be
Like, it'd
cool.
be kind of interesting, right?
what about the next one? Because the 98 one, Kelly's coming into that world title third again.
Yeah.
Kind of needs 2 surfers above him to stuff up.
Yeah.
It was Mick Campbell and Danny Wills.
Yeah.
You guys end up in the quarters. If you beat him, he loses the world title. It's just crazy, man, that you and him are out at pipe again. And it's bigger. It's definitely bigger. It was heavier. Like, I remember it was kind of thick, nowhere near as clean. Water was a lot darker for some reason. Don't remember why, but you and him just go into a full blown cone off, mate. Like it was the most hectic, thick spit fest. Like that's the thing I remember. Every barrel you guys got just showered you in sea mist.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. Wow. Is that the same heat where you went backdoor, or is that years later?
Yeah, I think it was.
Because you got a 10.
I got a 10 going right.
Yeah.
The only time I went right, I think.
Madness, man. Madness. And that tube stands up against any backside tube at backdoor, I reckon.
I just remember sitting out there, and I look like the wave popped up, and we're sitting like kind of in the middle. Kelly's looking for rights, obviously, but I had priority, and I was on the other side of him to go left. And I just looked at him, and his eyeballs popped out of his head. Like he saw the wave and was just like, oh my gosh.
And you're like, I've got to do it.
I'm like, fuck, it's a right? Like, okay. Like,
How many backdoor waves did you caught before that, do you reckon?
Nothing of significance. Like, not even caught away. Dude. And I just went, right, okay, I got to go. Like, shit, I'm doing it.
If his eyes are doing that, like
he started paddling for it, and then was just like, he couldn't contain himself. He was just like, it was written all over his face.
Wow. And you're like, I got it.
I just went, and I just held on, just grabbed my rail, and it was like through one section and started to come out another section, another, and it just like came out the end, just like the whole beach erupted. And it was just, I could feel him out the back, just, but before that heat even started was when it was the most intense. Because we were sharing the same yard. Like we were in the Johnson's yard.
Yeah.
And I was there with, I think my brother was there with me. No, he wasn't. I called him. That's right. But Kelly was there. He was on one side of the yard. I was on the other side of the yard. And we obviously know what's going on, you know? And I have people coming up to me going, hey, are you just not going to paddle out?
Oh, people were dead set doing that.
I was like, what? What do you mean?
Because Oki says the same when he was surfing heats against Sonny, and actually a couple of the Hawaiians came up and said, nah, man, you make sure you surf. Like, you know what I mean? Don't.
Right.
Like a couple of them did.
Yeah.
Then a couple others were going, don't you fucking do our boy. Like, you know,
don't
real
beat him.
hectic conflict going on
Heavy.
from people who have the ability to really stress you out.
Totally. And people were just like, oh, you're just going to throw the heat? Maybe just paddle out and just, you know, catch a few shitty ones.
Mad that someone would say that to you as a competitor.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, and so I called my brother, and I'm like,
so it got to you. You had to actually go and just sort out where you were sitting with it all before you even paddled out.
Yeah. Because I was like, what is going on? Am I like the bad guy? If I paddle out, if I beat him right now, am I looked at as like a dickhead? Like, is that bad thing? So I was struggling. Like I called my brother, and my brother surfs a bit, but he comes from like the baseball world and kind of other sports. And I was like, dude, he's like, how's it going? And this is before webcasts. And I'm like, dude, it's crazy. I'm like in this heat with Kelly. If he wins, he wins the world title. If he loses, the Aussies, one of the Aussies is gonna win.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And I'm like, and people are asking me if I'm not gonna surf. And he's like, what? And he goes, fuck that. Go out and kick his ass. You know? He's like, make him earn it. You know, if he doesn't, like, he would be pissed.
Yeah.
If you didn't go out. Like, if you just laid down and gave it to him, that's not cool. And that was all I needed. Like, I was just like, oh, fuck. Okay, that makes the world of sense.
Yeah.
And I just I was immediately back to my normalcy of like going to surf a heated pipe, and I'm surfing against one of the best dudes to ever do it.
That's it.
And I'm going to go out and just give it my all. And
mate, I tell you, you didn't lay down and give it to him, but you gave it to him. You got a tan. You like went mad in that heat. Well, and how's this as a level of respect, right? When you come in from that heat, and Kelly's world champ, and he was doing stuff that he was doing things that I've never seen him do before, where he was coming out of barrels like blissed, like in pure bliss, you know, like kind of like similar to when he won that comp when he was 50 recently, like coming out of barrels, just looking up to the sky, like screaming. And you both got chaired up the beach.
Yeah.
Like,
I was just going to say that.
Like, name one other heat where, like, you're not surfing for the world title at that stage.
No.
You've just been beaten and you're getting chat up the beach.
Right.
For me, that was like because that heat demanded him to be the world champion, not just like, oh yeah, I was surfing against my friend.
Yeah.
And that, like, do you remember that? That was so crazy, man. Like, you were thinking, what am I doing up here on those shoulders?
I just lost.
Getting shouting champagne and shit.
And that year, I totally remember, like, I maybe made the top 10. Like, I was nowhere in the rankings anywhere special. Like, there was no reason for me to be carried up the beach. Yeah. But the fact that maybe everyone just kind of had assumed that I was going to give it to him. And maybe, people were probably thinking like along those lines, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? We don't know.
Yeah.
And then for how it unfolded, like 10-point rides and just blown out of tubes and have this incredible heat to come to the beach where everyone's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, I agree with you 100%. That's a heat that gets totally overlooked. Yeah. That was like one that sticks out in my mind for sure.
Sick, man. Yeah. That contest obviously has the Jake Patterson-Bruce Irons final too, which is just another fucking psycho moment in sport, I don't know if you know that story. Jake, it's famous in Australia, but
I watched it.
Christian Fletcher's literally paddling out for the expression session that's after the final going, you've already lost and you don't even know it, like with 30 seconds on the clock. And then that wave pops up out of nowhere and Jake reckons like they were blocking the left anyway, so he couldn't have gone left. Yeah. And he just takes off on that right, Hooter goes, and out he comes, Bruce on the beach watching it,
That was so
one of the all-time comps, dude, like seriously. Like, and the drama of Mick and Campbell and Wilsey both. Yeah. Wilsey losing to Ross Williams on a skipped-out bottom turn. Yeah. Like he needed a 4. All he had to do was get a half head dip and a bit of spray on the back of his neck. Crazy shit.
Crazy. And I think Ross broke his board in that heat. Yeah. He was just having a shocker.
Carnage, man. Like, carnage. It's craziness.
Like having those events, like the controversy and just fun stuff that was going on, like intensity. It was so intense.
And on just a completely other random moment, Christian Fletcher does a boned out air like 10 minutes after the final that still is like one of the biggest things ever seen. Like,
wow.
Like, mate, telling you, that comp had some wild shit going on. But let's just jump forward to, while we're just on the pipe chats, to 2000, man, because, you say you clicked in 95, that was your world title year. Then, as careers do, there's ups and downs. There's plenty of wins and some highlights and lowlights and whatever. But it just felt like Pipeline was destined to have your moment that was yours and yours alone, not one shared with Kelly. And it happened, man. And that comp, like, I remember it was the first time I'd ever seen a broadcast. So the internet was so sketchy. It was kind of like you'd get frame grabs almost. And I remember watching at home and we saw Loey's 10 in the semi. And man, oh man, it was one of the heaviest, tallest waves. It was a big pipe year, right? There was almost no backdoor.
Nope.
And it was massive, man. Yeah. Massive. Like, what are your memories of getting through that event?
I just remember waking up that morning knowing, I don't even think there was really good forecasting back then. You just kind of knew that a swell was hitting, right? Waking up and just hearing the rumbling and getting into the yard in the dark and seeing whitewater on the horizon. Like, oh shit. Like it's one of those days. And is it too big? And like first light, there's guys out second reef, guys scattered all the way through to first reef. And I was like, oh man, this is intense. I had first heat. First heat of the morning. And this is the round before the quarters.
Oh, they're the ugliest heats.
Oh.
It's so unsorted.
The sun's not on it.
Yeah, and it's just the grossest setup. Like most people would go, oh, get out there in the dark. Like you never want to be out there in that size swell.
No. And I was just like, oh man, like here we go, right? I had Pedersen Rosa in my heat, and
the animal.
I'm the animal, and I'm walking down the beach, and I see Sean Briley. I think I was walking on the road, and I see Sean Briley walk by me, and he's on a good one. Like he looks like he just came straight from town.
Yeah.
And I grabbed my jersey and I walked down the beach, and I didn't see it happen, but I guess Pedersen had an altercation with maybe Kalani Chapman at Rocky Point, and Briley had chosen that moment to go and
sort it out.
He might have had there might have been a slap. I don't know, but something went down. Might have chased him into the water, like kind of thing.
Yep.
I just wanted to get in the water because I was like, dude, I got to get out there and just feel this energy and see it and like figure it out. And Pedersen, he was a beast, man. Like he wasn't scared.
Nah.
And he found a gem, like kind of one of those roll-ins, and he got an 8 on a wave. Like it was hard.
Yep.
A lot of wash throughs. And same kind of scenario like we were just talking about with like Jake, right? The heat was going on. I had found a couple weird ones, and I needed a 5.9. I don't know why I remember that, but there was a minute to go, and there had just been a big wash through. We had paddled over. I was paddling back furiously. You know, they're like 50 seconds, and like I just got into first reef zone and last chance, like literally the last wave of the heat. Caught it, got a little tube that wouldn't have been the score. I came out of that tube and I went into the sandbar, and it like got another like little bonus tube. And it was kind of, I think that was it. Like, it like pushed it over the edge, and I got a 6. And it's, when you think back to any event that you won, there was one heat that you're like, oh, that's it. Like, I'm done. Like, I just lost that heat. And then some miraculous little thing happens. And that was that moment that like, I got this 6-point ride. And then now I had, there was 8 heats in that round. So I had like 3 or 4 hours where I could just sit.
Yeah.
I went up into the yard and I just studied it. And there were some crazy heats because the sun hit it. It cleaned up. The wind kicked in. And Kelly had a heat against Andy. And that was soon after my heat. It must have been like the next heat. And
this would have been seedling stuff for them because Andy isn't world champ yet, and Kelly's still retired or off in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So this was, please tell me what happened.
Andy was on a, I think he'd won like the HIC at Pipe at that point. Like he was an animal out there too. Like he was not scared and just, he was a savage, and he beat Kelly. Like I just remember watching the heat going like, oh my gosh, Kelly's the guy. Like he's won this event 5 times and he's the guy out here, and Andy just took him down. I was like crazy. And of course I had to surf against him in the next round. So I sat there, I watched the waves, the swell was dropping. So it like less and less second reef washes.
Yeah. When you say dropping, just
barely.
Missing the back and just loading up on the first reef. So not that much.
No, it's still 10, 12 feet. Like it's just barely starting to not break on the second reef and loading. And me and Andy paddled out. And for me personally, I think back on it, and it was maybe one of the most memorable heats I had out there. It was that late morning, I want to say like 10, 11 o'clock, where the sun was just like lighting it up. And I had 3 waves that were just so memorable to me.
Yeah.
And one like chipping in outside the boil, behind the boil, and just pumping through the first section, through the second section, into the sand, and there's also a wave that you might remember. I was paddling back out, and I saw it firsthand. Like Andy paddled into this absolute just mutated beast of a thing, right? And it was doubling up. It had a full low road on the underneath, and he swung it, and he free fell down the face, like did one of his old sliding sideways. And I was like, oh my God. And the lip turned into like this 6 foot thick folding in half, and he kind of barely didn't pearl, slid down the face sideways, his fins caught, boom, and he locked in, and he stood straight up. And I was like, that was the heaviest thing I've ever seen. And he was going through this. I'm like, that's a 10. Like, here we go, And it got weird right at the end. And he had like gotten super relaxed, and he was like, oh, I just did all the hard part, and I'm just going to get blown out, and the lip clipped him on the way out, and he fell. And I was like, oh, was that like just a little gift from the gods? Like that was like a little blessing, and that was kind of it. He might have broken his board, like, and I ended up having just 3 really good waves, and then the quarterfinal I surfed against Renan Roca, which was a super scary one because the heat before with Andy, it was like there was tons of waves. We were just on everything, and then all of a sudden it went a little weird, as Hawaii does. A cloud comes over, the wind changes a little bit, and I had 2 good waves, and he had 3, and I needed to score, but it was a small score, and I remember I sat there. I think I had 15 minutes, and I was like, yeah, cool, I got priority. I'll just wait for a good one. Next thing you know, they're like, all right, 4 minutes, like 3 minutes. And I think I caught it around like the 2-minute mark and just got this gem that like, it was kind of a doggy door one. Like I was like, oh, squeak out. And like, I'm here, guys. Like I made it. And like making that wave and then winning that heat and then seeing Mick Lowe just get the wave of the contest.
Yeah.
Like tippy-toed on just a teepee, like 12-footer. And he was surfing against Shane Dorian, who was on fire. Yeah. Like the whole event. It was like, I was thinking like, oh, it's going to be me and Shane. Like he had a couple insane waves in that semi. And then Mick got that one and it just flipped the cards. Yeah. It was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe. It was one of those ways you just cannot believe that he made it.
Oh man, you watch it now, like it's on. We'll drop it into this combo, hopefully. Yeah. Just pirate shit out of everything, so don't worry about that. Yeah. But it stands up. It's a 10 on in any comp. Yeah. Any pipe comp ever run, that's a 10. Yeah. And we said to him during a live show once, we're like, Loey, what was it like inside that thing, man? He goes, I have no idea. I had my eyes just squeezed tight the whole time. He just was going, I don't know. It was just spit and shit going everywhere. And he's I just couldn't even open my eyes. I was just holding on for my dear life. So mad, man, mad.
So now I'm going into the final with Mick after he just, I'm like, geez, man, this is going to be gnarly. Yeah. Like he's on point right now.
But you just had the heat of all heats.
Well, dude, I'll tell you right now, we both got a couple of waves. It started off, we had a few, and then I remember kicking out of a wave, and it was like the wave he caught in the semi, like being replayed. Yeah. Another one. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But he was like a touch too far in or something, and maybe there was like a little wonk in it, but he paddled into it, and I was just like, this is it. I'm going to watch a 10. Like, he's going to get spit out right in my face. Yeah. And just... And he got up and he just poked the nose.
I remember.
Oh, and he got obliterated. You know, like that's not a good place to fall. No. Straight over the falls. And there was like 3 more behind it, and I was paddling out. He ended up like basically on the beach. And when that's your 4th heat of the day, like you're straight up just pickled. Like you are a shell of a human. You're running on just fumes at that point. And I remember, and I paddled out the back. I had priority, and that was when this gem came to me, and I took off. And it wasn't like the most perfect setup. Like I almost had to like go through a little chandelier to get into it. But I ended up getting a 10-point ride. And that it was like this crazy flip where like he was on a 10-point ride and got smoked, and then I got it, you know, and it was just like how contests work, right?
Oh man, there's something cosmic about every comp. Don't know why. I don't know. It's like sometimes the villain wins, sometimes the hero wins, sometimes everyone wins, because that was a day where after that 10 happens, you go into vibration land. Like you can just tell. Nothing can even touch you by then. Yeah. And I'll never forget, man, when the hooter goes, and this is so early in the days of broadcast and stuff, because it was so glitchy. I don't even know if they had people in the water with you. Probably not.
Yeah, no.
But I just remember this shot of you, like with your head in your hands, and
Yeah.
we ended up getting a photo of it that we ran at Waves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a double page, and we blurred out everything, and it just had you with your head in your hands, and it was like, I was just going, mate, what a moment. What a moment for, you know, a surfer of your caliber and of your style, and for the things that you had begun to sort of where you were placing priorities in your surfing life, and to get a win at Pipeline on a day like that, on a swell like that.
I know. It was insane.
Mate.
That was it.
Fuck.
That was it. That was like my world title.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I just don't know, like, if you needed anything more than that, really, because all the small wave stuff and the small wave wizardry, there's no question that throughout the 90s and 2000s, everyone knew you were the best at it. You and Kalani, pretty much.
Right.
Maybe Timmy Curran.
Yeah.
And so to get a win and to just be doing that in Hawaii, especially after those other 2 heats with Kelly that cemented his legacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Epic, Rob.
You know, the other event that sticks out of my head too, you know, kind of going away from that, the only event I ever won in Australia was the Billabong Challenge.
Oh, of course, man.
And that was in 95.
No way. So that was basically the birth of the Dream Tour, right?
Yeah.
So Gordon Merchant, Jack McCoy, bunch of crew got together and were going, everyone's sick of these shitty little waves.
Yeah.
Let's handpick some of the best surfers in the world, go up to the desert.
Yeah.
Which is that called, what's that movie called? I can't even remember now.
It was just called
Psychedelic Desert Groove, or
no,
Billabong
that was the
Challenge,
second one. This one was just called the Billabong Challenge, the first movie. And it was, at the time, they took the top 4 guys in the world. It was me, Kelly, Sonny, and Powley.
Yeah.
And then they had Aki, Margot, Johnny Boy, and I forget who was supposed to come, but they ended up putting Ant-Man in.
Oh,
He was
that's
He
right.
was the chef.
Classic.
Yeah. And so that was the 2 heats. It was kind of the 8 guys, and but pumping Narlu, man. Like,
Yeah.
we sat in the desert for like 2 weeks and kind of got a little bit skunked and had some weather, and then it happened, man. It was that wave is no joke.
Oh,
It was crazy.
mate, I would put it in the top 10 heaviest,
Yeah.
like, so-called perfect lefts in the world, because
Right.
it's fucking got steps, it's got ledges, it's got 1,000 other things going on.
It's nasty.
It's pretty much the domain of a certain type of surfer.
Yeah.
And yeah, tell us about it. Like, what were those heats like? Because Oki was on, by this stage,
Yeah.
properly raring to go.
He was fired up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just to prove that, he ended up in the final of the Pipe Masters that year.
That's right.
And he just blazed through that whole thing. So, like, he was on point, and, you know, Margot was Margot. Like, you know, that's, if there's a contest that he could do well in, that was going to be it. And I think my first heat, I had Margot and Johnny Boy and maybe Ant-Man. And Johnny Boy, it was like we were invisible. You know, Bugs sat us all down. He goes, all right, we're going to have gentleman's priority, right? Whoever's out the back first has first pick.
Yeah.
You know, and Johnny Boy would just paddle by us like, what are you guys even doing out here? Like, I'm just going to paddle up past you and catch any wave I want. And so, unfortunately for Margot, like, he didn't even catch like 2 waves in the heat. And they were like hour-long heats. But it was like, I think when they started it, the tide was a little high. So it was like only the biggest sets were the good ones. But the intimidation factor from Johnny Boy was off the charts. Off the charts. It was like, even on land.
It never went anywhere, right? Like ping pong, would you dare play him?
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, because we would do these, we'd play these games at night where we would play to 3.
Yeah.
So that everyone could play.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like whoever won 3 points, like, you just, okay, sweet, you stay on, and somebody else comes, you know, the other guy's out and the new guy's in. So, like, you would just, I was rifling through a bunch of people, and Johnny Boy comes up. There's a shot in the movie.
Yeah.
You got to go back and watch the movie. And it's like, I serve it, and he would stand at the table, like, right up against the table, and he would just stare at you.
Oh, my God.
Like, just like growling, like gripping the paddle, you know? And I served it like with a lot of topspin. So it hit his paddle and it went up super high in the air. And I came in and just smashed it, and it went right by his head. And he just put his paddle down and he growled like super loud. And he goes, I'll see you in the lineup, buddy. And I was just like, oh, was that a bad thing? Did I just do a bad thing? Like, you know, like
Mate.
there were so many good stories. Like Kelly, like he would mess with us. He would just totally mess with us.
Well, even up there in the desert where it's just a gentleman's comp.
Yeah.
Not much going on.
He was like, just had to show his, I don't know, it was just his intensity. It was radical.
That's just got to be, because I've only realized like in the last few years that people who are super competitive need the exact structure of everything that's going on. So if they don't have it, they start to get stressed out because they don't know the rules and how can they win kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like that's just him doubling down on like, I'm going to be the best at everything, right?
Yeah. But I remember me and Kelly were talking one night. We were sharing a tent, and Johnny Boy just kept kind of like nudging him and harassing him. Like the funniest things, like literally they'd have these spreads, right? And you'd go through, there'd be fresh fish and salads. And I'd get to the end and they'd have some bread rolls and I'd put my bread roll on top and I'd turn to go like sit down and Johnny Boy would be standing there. And he again would just kind of look at me and like growl, and he would reach over and just take like food off of my plate, like take my roll, and like like stuff like that.
Man.
And I would be like, okay, cool, you can have that one. I'll grab another one. But like when he would do stuff like that to Kelly, like Kelly was tripping. Like he said to me one night, he's like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, he's like, I'm going to lose it. Like, I might just punch him in the face. Like, I might just walk up to him and punch him in the face. And then whatever happens after that, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I feel like.
I can't just keep getting bullied.
Yeah. He's like, I just want to get it over with. And then we'll be friends after and it's all good, you know? And I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, man.
Nah, probably not. So, yeah, just describe the actual, like, you know, that winning that comp.
Yeah.
Like what did it, because it's such a specialty event. I think by this stage, people were getting wind of the kind of surfer that you wanted to be. And winning in that surf was like, it didn't feel like, there's a grommet schooling everyone. It felt like you were coming into your own. Yeah. Obviously in the world title hunt that year. Yeah. What did it do for you just to be in the desert? And
I mean, at that point, we'd all seen Aki and Margot surfing those waves and videos and like, you know, Johnny Boy's capabilities and, you know, so like, I don't know, again, like we didn't have much surf the whole time we were there. Then when it turned on, we had one day to really surf it. And I was like, I understood what was going on. There's like this one staircase thing that you kind of got to go around or through, and then you go through this kind of fat section, and then it staircases again, and I was like, okay, I understand what's happening, and man, I just happened to be in the priority spot when like that one just like bomb came in the final, and I was deep, and I took off behind that rock thing, and it for some reason it didn't really staircase that much on that one, and it just let me stand in this big pit. And I mean, there was a lot of good waves ridden, like just to put scores on them and to actually have a winner seems weird because it was just like it just seemed like just one of those sessions where everybody got incredible waves, and so that was like a huge feather in my cap, like of confidence to come out of that. And like, I just surfed against like my heroes and proper waves of consequence and
waves of truth, like, waves of truth. That's all we want, mate. Waves of truth. Come on, world tour.
Intensity and
but
like,
it changed everything, man. That comp, like all those comps, they ran for a couple of years, and you know the caliber of surfers that they had and the waves that they scored just made everyone. I guess Rabbit was president of the ASP not long after that, and he just went, that's what we're doing. Yeah. And then off you go to G-Land and all those great spots.
Yeah, that was like the experiment, you know, that he got to do it with Billabong, and they made movies out of it, and the movies are epic. They're Jack McCoy, you know, beautifully shot, like masterpieces, you know.
Mate, we've talked about some heats that were absolute bell ringers and fond memories for you. What about some that, or just one even that just keeps you awake at night? Have you got a heat where you just, if it pops in your brain, you're like, no. Have you got any from your career that just make you twist? Because like, it might not be necessarily one that keeps you awake at night now. But if it was to pop up in your head at a table with all your friends and you were talking about it. Have you got one?
There's one that pops in my head that was, I want to say it was 96 or 97, and I just had the shocker of it of the start of the year. I think I got 33rd in every event. I was rated like dead last, and I was like, I have to go do the QS.
Oh.
Like, you remember that phase where it was like, you could like mid-season just go, all right,
well,
I got to go jump on it.
That was in the old days before, like when it was CT and QS. That was the system. If you weren't going well enough, off you go, back to the QE.
Yeah. So luckily, I had such a bad start that I was like, this isn't good. Like, there's very little chance that I'm going to claw my way back up to the cut. So, like, I might as well just jump into the queue and get some events so that maybe by the end of the year I can. And so I went to England, and I took my mom with me because she's British.
Yeah.
And we were like, sweet, we'll make a trip out of it. And we went to England and down in Newquay, you know, the Surf Masters, I think it was called back then. And I grinded my way through the whole event, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm making some heats. I'm going to get a result. Made the final. And I was in the final with 3 Brazilians. And they had a little powwow on the beach, and were like, there was no priority back then.
Who we got? Victor Ribas.
Maybe. It might have been Victor.
Neko Padarats.
Pereira? Was it Tadeo Pereira?
Armando Daltro.
Tadeo Pereira, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that name?
Of course, man. This is the pre-Brazilian Stormers where they were actually, you were dead set paddling into a hurricane if you surfed heats against them. They were that hungry.
So intense.
Yeah.
And they were like taking turns, like sitting on me, like 2 of them at a time. And I was just like, somehow I scraped together like some scores.
Yeah.
I put together a couple good waves. I had 2 of them comboed, and the one guy needed like a 7.33, like a pretty legit score for that day.
Yeah.
And this wave came in, and I got the little chip in, and I was like, sweet. I held all those guys off. I was just like, take that. You know, I held my ground, and I kind of thought that was it. And it was like the final 10 seconds. I think it was Tadeo Pereira down the beach, gets this right, and he just windshield wipers it. Just, bam, you know, like.
That is the most backhanded compliment ever.
He just, and I'm just going, okay, like, is that the score? Like, it was one of those moments you're like, man, I don't know. Like, shoot, like, I don't think it is, but who knows, you know? And I was just like, man, I just went to war out there, and like I'm going to be pissed if they give him the score. Yeah. And sure enough, 7-5. And I don't know what happened, dude, but I saw red, and I was so pissed. I was like, my mom's here. Yeah, I'm in her home country, you know? And I stormed up the beach just through the crowd. And I remember I got to the judges thing, and the judges were all gone by this. Remember at Newquay, like, if you had a low tide, it was like
a 20-minute walk.
It was a kilometer to get back up to the judging tower. The judges, which again solidifies, like, how do you judge from that far away, right? So I get up there, and I kick down the door, basically. Like, I walk in, and it's Renato is in there. And I didn't even say a word. I kicked the door in, and he just, like, his eyeballs go huge, and he's looking at me, and I threw my board. It was one of those little, you know, like trailers that they bring in, and they're like hollow. Yeah. Right? And I threw my board across the entire thing, almost hit him. It bounced off the walls, and I was just fucking screaming. And it was like that moment of just, I had to get it out. Like, I was, the whole year, it was really a buildup of the whole year. Yeah. Of all the losses and everything. And I finally, like, figured something out. And you just took that from me, you know? And I was like, this is all your fault, you know? And I, like, to this day, he probably remembers it, and I apologize to you officially. But I chucked my board, and I screamed at him. And then I just, like, it was all gone. I let it all out. Yeah. And
that was it. Your one and only massive dummy spit.
Yeah. And I just went, yep. Okay. Grabbed my board, walked out.
Wonder if any of the Brazilian surfers got a selfie with Renato at that contest. Might be able to turn back a few results there, eh? Send a few judges home and whatnot.
So I don't know if that's the right story for that moment, but
no, man, that's it's just interpreted how you want. Like to me, those are the sorts of moments that really showcase a side of you that you know people probably don't know that well. Like fucking oath, when it matters, it matters.
Yeah, man, it's just like when things don't go right and you're struggling to find something and you're just like trying this and trying that and man, it's not working, and then all of a sudden it starts to click, and you feel like you finally did something right, and you've turned the corner, and it kind of gets pulled away from you. But at the same time, I was like, okay, you know what? Like I'm okay. Like I did turn the corner. You're not taking this away from me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like now, and then sure enough, I went on to I surfed in a couple more Kiwis and had some results, and then I started getting results on the CT. I think I ended up winning a contest in Portugal, and shot up in the ratings and ended up making the cut in the end. And finishing, I was always somewhere around the top 10, pretty high. So,
yeah.
Mate,
did you have a last CT heat, or was it over after the mid-year cut fiasco? Or the wildcard, injury wildcard fiasco? Like, did you surf another CT after you were cut from the tour?
Not as a CT member.
No, but you did surf a couple
as a wild card. Yeah. Which back then wild cards didn't get points.
Nah.
You were just like the invisible guy.
Yeah.
Where
was that at? Like Trestles or
Trestles.
Something?
I would get wild cards to Trestles.
Yeah.
I ended up surfing in the Pipe Masters because I had to claw my way back in. That was 05. Would have been 06. The year of 06. I surfed in so what they started doing was they'd use at this year it was it the Mountain Dew, or no, it was the Hanson's Energy event, which would take place in February.
Yeah.
And if you won that event, they would let you into the Pipe Masters.
Oh.
Yeah.
Classic.
But I remember me.
That's like a movie.
Yeah.
If you win the wave pool in Arizona, you get a wild card to the Pipe Masters.
So that was the only way in for someone like me. 2 years or a year prior to that, myself, it was Jamie O'Brien, I think it was Mark Matthews, and I got third. Jamie won, and the whole time they'd been announcing like, okay, we're going to let 4 guys in the event.
Oh.
Right? And we're like, we made the final. This is so sick. And they went, oh, actually, it's Hawaiians.
Oh.
And so we got ousted.
Heavy.
And so the following year, I asked Randy, I said, what was up with that? Like, you've been announcing the whole time. Like, and he goes, well, for anyone who's not Hawaiian, you have to win the event.
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to do that then.
Yeah.
And so I won the event, which I ended up getting a 10 in the final. It was with Freddie Patachia. And
sick.
Like that was kind of a crazy final too. And then I made it through the entire event of the Pipe Masters, and I ended up in the final with Corey Lopez, Andy, and Kelly.
Whoa.
Remember that heat?
So this is what year is this? 2006?
6, I think.
Whoa, 2006. Yeah. Is this the one where he does the floater on the busted board, or like is it pumping, or is it?
This is the one where Kelly has everyone comboed.
Oh.
And then Andy, he gets the one left, and then he gets the one, and then he paddles back out and paddles around Kelly and gets the right and comes back and beats him.
That's right.
Like it was, and me and Corey were like a sideshow. Like I remember I caught my first wave and I got this really long barrel and it went into the sandbar and the thing staircased and I broke my board. And I was like, oh, the board I've been riding the whole comp. I was like, fuck, So I went in, had to get a different board. And when I came back out, the energy in the water was so intense.
Man, so 2006, I'm pretty sure we're into almost flying the champagne turf, right? Like those two have, it's a year since Andy won the world titles.
It's insane. It's intense.
And it's still just as psycho as ever.
Oh, I remember a wave came in, and this is earlier in the heat.
Yeah.
And Corey was like sitting there, and we were kind of looking for lefts, and Corey just let Kelly paddle around him and go right, and he got a good score.
Oh, no.
And Andy lost it. He was screaming at him.
Whoa,
like,
man.
What are you doing? Like, idiot. Like, I was like, whoa, this is heavy. And Andy just like went to like a whole nother level. And that final was radical.
Is that your last CT heat?
Shit, maybe it was, man.
That is insane to be surfing your last ever CT heat with Andy and Kelly when there was still that much sting there. Like,
because that was a crazy year. So think about this.
Yeah.
I won the pipe contest, which was like a QS. And then I won the US Open, and all of a sudden, like, I was like, I might qualify.
Yeah.
This is really weird.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't trying to do that.
Because that's 5 years. 5 years since you were unceremoniously.
Yes. 01 was my last.
Yeah.
I didn't even surf 01. Like, that was the year that September 11th happened. The year was cut short, and like I missed 4 events, and like I didn't even surf that year.
Yeah.
So 2000 was really my last full year on tour.
Yeah.
So now you fast forward, and I'm like about to qualify. Like, I was like, do I really want to?
Yeah.
And I actually went to Europe to surf in the QS events, and I just didn't have it in me. Like, I just didn't have the heart. And so that might have been, now that you bring it up, man, that's pretty interesting, because that very well could have been my last heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up getting last in the heat, which is great. But it was just cool to make the final. Being a non-CT surfer, having to win the trials of like all Hawaiian kind of trials and to get into the pipe contest. And now you're the lowest seed.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're surfing against.
No.
You know. But back then, that was one of the few events at pipe where it was during that four-man format, right? So
just, it's interesting to me because Kelly's rivalries, you know, you've seen them all. There was, you know, I guess in the early days before you guys started firing up, it was kind of like Kong and Potts and that generation.
Totally.
Then it's you and Beshin.
Yeah.
Then it's Cambo and Wilsey. Then it's like, it just goes through all this list. But clearly Andy is the absolute kryptonite.
Yeah.
And 2006, that is 2 years since Andy's won a world title.
Yeah.
And like they are still that fizzing, and he's screaming at one of his best mates, but like, you're a fuckwit. Like, that just blows me out so heavily.
It was so heavy.
But Kelly apparently said the same to Joel the year before, or in 2003, sorry.
Yeah.
That Joel blocked him off a wave. And
right.
So all that shit goes on, man. It's pretty crazy. Not intentionally maybe, but it's all part of that big storyline, isn't it?
Those were weird times when they had those 4-man heats, you know. It's like, you know, here's Kelly and Andy paddling out for a world title heat, but you've got
Joel Phil Macca.
And Phil Macca.
Phil McDonald.
And you're like, should those guys just sit on the beach?
Fully.
You know, like, you guys, like, it's not going to affect your rating whether you get 3rd or 4th. Like,
well, they've changed it, thank goodness. So.
And they did. But I look back at those times and I'm like, man, that was because that episode happened, right, with Parko kind of holding Kelly off, and it was pretty bad. I mean, they're surfing gums, right? It was like rights at gums, but I don't know. We moved on beyond that.
I know, man. Hey, epic to chat to you. Actually, just before you go, I've got to ask, because I love asking this question. Who was your kryptonite? Who was just a surfer who you'd paddle out against and go, no? Like, and it's not always the best surfer, and it's not always someone that you like love the way they surf or anything. It's just someone who has the wood on you.
I know.
Did you have someone like that in your career where you just go, what is it about this guy? Why can't I get over the top of him?
Yeah. I mean, Kelly was always that guy.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm proud to say I got him a few times, you know, in a couple of key moments. But I think, you know, one that kind of stands out to me would be like a Victor Rebus. He was a savage, man. He would just put together a heat no matter what. And it was always like, I remember having a heat with like Armando Daltro in a final, a CT final, Lacanau, just paddling out going, I cannot lose.
Yeah.
I absolutely cannot lose. Like, and just putting those thoughts in your head, it's almost reverse psychology. You're like, dude, what am I doing? Like, I can't think of it like that. Just do your thing. You're so relieved at the end if you beat them, you know. So
it's mad, mate.
Yeah.
So great to catch up with you, mate.
So
frothing. Big thanks to Sunbum for sponsoring breathing heats. I was going to say
breathing and steaming.
Steaming heats, but mate. Yeah, what do you reckon when you look back over your career and you kind of think about that chapter in your life? It's not that far back when you start talking about it. It feels right there.
It's wild when you sent me the text and you like, you know, you kind of listed off like best heat, worst heat, you know, memorable, this, that, and the other. I was like, I can't remember anything.
Nah.
But then once you kind of sit down and you crack into the skull and just they start boiling up. And
well, I guess at the end of the day too, you are riding waves. Yeah. You're not just sort of paddling out and you have an opponent. Like a lot of the waves we talked about are life changing or just tattooed on your memory and on your soul for different reasons.
Absolutely.
Thanks heaps, man. Can't wait to do it again. Let's we'll get you in on a part 2 with the whole Indo adventure stuff and
totally. Yeah, there's
man, I had a fucking good laugh listening to you and Nick Von Rupp talking about because you were talking about we kind of alluded to it in this convo, but that year where you had to apply for the wild card.
Yeah.
And the surfers have to all go in a room full of their peers and plead their case.
Yeah.
And then the peers vote, right? Like, so it's basically Survivor.
Yeah.
Like you're going like, hey, here's why I know. And like I just remembered, I don't know if it was that year, but Chris Davidson, the late, great Chris Davo, you know. Yeah. He went in one year and he had trod on a bottle in the competitors area at a contest.
Wow.
So like that ruined his year, or at least 5 events.
Wow.
So he could not surf, right? He's at a WSL event, cuts his foot in the competitors area, has a rashie on, like the best case you've ever heard.
Yeah.
And he goes to the meeting and like I think Beshan was there maybe pleading his case and crying and someone else was doing something and everyone was just, pouring their hearts out and Davo gets up and literally all he has to say is, well, I got injured at a comp.
Yeah.
I stood on a bottle that someone had dropped, on you guys.
Right.
And instead he goes and he goes, look, I've been having a cunt of a year. My chick left me. I got 2 DUIs and just started like roping off his hard luck story instead of he didn't even mention that he'd fucking got injured at the comp.
Oh my goodness.
And he didn't get it. And I was like, what? This is madness. Madness. But like what a unbelievably like sort of like it beggars belief that's how it was settled. How you got it done.
That's how it was settled.
Because you had no hope not being there.
Yeah.
No hope, man.
No hope.
Because no one in the room is going to feel bad voting against someone who's not there.
Totally.
Because they don't have to walk out and face the guy.
And look at you.
Yeah.
And no Americans were showing up at that meeting.
Nah.
Like very, very few. And so like I wrote a letter. Someone got up and read my letter.
You needed Matt George to read that letter.
Yeah, I did. I need someone, or for him to write it.
Yeah. If he wrote it, it would have been turned into like some steamy B-grade sort of late night sex TV show. Probably.
Oh, man. So you can imagine everyone just listening to this. I try to keep it very factual. Like, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. I missed this event because of this. I broke my hand, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, I couldn't be there. My wife had just given birth to our child, and I was like, okay, there was complications. Like, it was like, dude, I'm at home. Like, I'm not going to fly to Hawaii to sit in the Haleiwa Rec Center and, mosquitoes buzzing around and everybody, there's probably a whiteboard or a chalkboard that they're like, okay, Rob missed a couple events, blah, 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 you know? And it was like guys walking in on crutches and like the whole shebang. Like the fact that even happened is just,
it's ludicrous, man. But you know what? I don't know if it's improved that much.
Yeah.
Like who knows who gets what and why now
at
the end of the year.
Who's deciding?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do they just randomly give wild cards to people? I don't know. They don't never say why.
I feel like if it's just genuinely about lifting the profile of sport, you would never give wild cards to anyone other than like Dane Reynolds, Bethany Hamilton, like a couple of other people who are just people want to see in contest rashies.
Yeah.
Surfing against the best in the world.
Totally. It's a weird one, man.
It is.
It's
but you know what, man? It sent you off on a path that I think, you know, everyone who loved watching you surf when they were growing up, as hard as it might have been, being super competitive and wanting to still surf and compete, it sent you on your path, man.
Yeah, it did. You know what? I remember nobody told me.
No.
This is the funny part, is that
you turn up for the first comp and they're like, nah, man, there's no spot for you. No, they must have told you.
No. Like the meeting went down and it all went down and it was decided, right? And then I showed up like a week or two later for the pipe contest.
Oh, yeah.
So I was coming to Hawaii. This took place during like Haleiwa or sunset, right? And so I show up and I'm walking down Kainui and I forget who walked by. It might have been Sarge or Jake Pato. And they went, oh, sorry to hear about the wild card thing. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And they kind of went, oh, yeah, you didn't know? And I was like, and back then, like, who are you calling or who you know, like nobody has cell phones. Like it was, you were kind of like, I got to go to the comp tomorrow and like talk to someone and figure this out. And I kind of just assumed the worst, right? And I went home back to the pad and I'd brought my dad with me and we were just sitting there and I was like, what if this really did happen? Like, what am I going to do? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, my life's like over. This is like everything that you know, grow up, you strive for, like get to this place and like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And like all my sponsors, it's all based around what I'm doing on this tour and et cetera, et cetera. And he goes, hey, I know you feel like shit right now, but you know, something good will come out of this, you know? And I was like, I looked at him like, you're tripping. Like if you think anything good could come out of this. And he was right. You know, like I didn't see it at the time. And it took a little while, not to mention like 3 months later, Gotcha filed for bankruptcy and I didn't have a sponsor. And then it's just like, all right, I'm really just like, so it was a wild time, man, to not have a sponsor. I had a brand new little baby girl and I was like not on tour. Like all of a sudden, instead of having this schedule laid out in front of me of all these events, I was not going to Australia. I was staying right at home. Like really weird.
And that's not even going into your identity, how much it's wrapped up in what you do.
Yeah.
Your sense of self is just evaporated because
there's
no one paying the bills and there's no opportunity to even win.
Yeah. Now what? Yeah. What am I going to do? It was months and months of just sitting around like, what do I do now?
But you snapped it, man, because you ended up getting a sponsor and then you ended up, you know, taking off. And it was like I think, you know, I haven't spoken to you a couple of times since then, especially through that drifting time or the drifter time, you know, like there was a lot of life changes and a lot of introspection going on. But I mean, all of that leads to a better version of yourself if you pay attention to it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because the other alternative is just fucking smother it with painkillers or other, you know, devices that are designed to keep you from your truth. Yeah. And that doesn't end well.
No, never ends well. If you face it and take it head on. And I was blessed to have Bob Hurley in my life. Yeah. Came into my life and just said, here, we'll sponsor you. We'll pay you this. And I said, cool. What do you guys want me to do? Yeah. And he just said, go surfing. I want you to wake up every day and go surfing.
We made a movie together years ago. I don't know if you remember this. Yeah. It's called Bicycle. It was a tiny little VHS.
I recorded the guitar.
You did the guitar on it. Yeah. Someone was just telling me the other day, Nick Pollett, who I make all the search movies and stuff with. He goes, that was my favorite movie growing up. Yeah. And that's what you said in that too.
Did I?
You said, just go surfing, man.
What year was that?
That was 2002.
Was it right after that?
Yep. Yeah. And you were just saying, just go surfing, man. You're still on Gotcha though. So,
yeah, I know. Yeah. I was like, maybe that was 2001.
Could have been 2001. No, 2001 was Seven Slaves. 2002, it had to be.
Yeah, weird. Yeah. I'm trying to remember when I started riding for Gotcha.
No. Yeah. It's 2001. It is, yeah.
That would have been my last year.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, we went up the coast and Got heaps of
Oscar.
seaweed, little riddled waves. And
Yeah,
it was fun though.
So chunky and fun. Yeah.
Ah, sick, man. But yeah, that's
Dingo.
funny, isn't it? Saying
Yeah.
the same thing that
Yeah.
you're just, you're tapping into that as your life force.
Yeah.
And all this time later through Bob and all that.
Yeah.
It just always stays the same, eh?
It totally, man. And that's the end all be all is like, as long as you just go surfing every day, like that kind of cleanses and fixes everything.
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
Love that. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, bud.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Righto. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
You legend.
Breathe.